So good morning, or it is morning for me anyway, because I'm out on my bike ride first thing in the morning. Here I am, arrived at Kinver, and I thought I'd just take a couple of minutes on my bike ride to share a few thoughts around this whole subject of Sabbath that we're looking at during this whole period of time. Let me just take my specs off and maybe my hat too. And I'm struck by, first of all, some people might say, why on earth are we talking about Sabbath? Surely this is an Old Testament idea, or connected maybe to the observance of Sabbath. Certainly I remember when I was a new Christian back in the 70s, early 70s, Sundays were protected. There were certain things you couldn't do on a Sunday. Surely really isn't Sabbath just all about either an Old Testament principle or a list of do's and don'ts? It's a sort of religious observation, so there's no need for us to do this anymore. Well, I think the scriptures actually address this, and particularly Jesus, when in Luke's Gospel, I think it is in chapter 6, in chapter 13, and then he goes to have dinner with a Pharisee in chapter 14, he addresses this very issue. And I thought it's worthwhile maybe just having a look at chapter 13. So in chapter 13, Jesus is teaching in the synagogue, and he notices a woman in the synagogue who has, as one translation puts it, a disabling spirit. There's this sense in which there's some stronghold in her or on her that is disabling her. She is unable to stand up straight, so she's bent over by this spirit. And so Jesus sees this woman, and cut long story short, he heals her, touches her, and she stands up straight. And the leader of the synagogue turns to Jesus and says, and this is really, see, this is a bunch of Pharisees. Leader of the synagogue is a Pharisee, I think, and Pharisees get a bad name in the New Testament. I think Pharisees had this underlying conviction that actually the kingdom of God came or arrived if people were holy. So holiness was the route to seeing the kingdom of God come. And this is why they were so obsessive about the law, and in fact invented a few more rules to attach to the law to make sure that people were holy, and they saw the possibility of God's kingdom coming. And so there's these Pharisees, this leader of the temple, is saying, you surely can't do this. You know, you can work 6 days a week, but God says, the law says, on the Sabbath you must rest. And Jesus makes this profound statement. So he says, well, you would untie your donkey and you would untie your ox and take them to water. Surely I can heal this woman. And so he does. She stands up straight and is delivered from being disabled, in effect. What's Jesus doing here? Is he simply being provocative to the Pharisees? Is he pushing on a nerve? Well, maybe in one sense, but I think it's more than that. I think Jesus is teaching the truth of what the Sabbath is all about. Jesus is saying the Sabbath, this idea of protecting a space in time, creating a space in time that is designated, nothing to do with labour, nothing to do with work, nothing to do with human effort, engineering, energy or resourcefulness. When we stop, when we rest, when we find a quiet place maybe, when we have a change to our rhythm and create some boundaries around that space, this is the very space in which God inhabits in a profound way. And what Sabbath is about people that are disabled, and we can use that metaphorically, I think, people that are disabled, things that cause us to be bent double in areas of our lives. It is Sabbath itself that enables us to stand up straight. What a profound thought. There's also this meeting in a synagogue in Luke chapter 6 where there's a man comes in and I think he's got a withered arm, again, the Pharisees say, we don't do healing Sunday through to Friday. 6 days a week you'll work, and the seventh is to be kept holy. But the point of holiness, the point of separating this day out, creating some boundaries around the space in time, is so that those things that are withered can be restored. So Sabbath is about restoration, it's about healing, it's about redemption. So Jesus' teaching here, it's not simply about religious observance, it's not simply about doing what the law says, it's about finding a space in which God can profoundly touch you and heal you. And I wonder, in this lockdown period, we're not all in a Sabbath rest. Many of us are working harder than we've ever worked. But for those of us that are, I wonder if this moment provides us with a space in which we can have a profound encounter with Jesus, where those of us that are crippled in some shape or form can be healed, where those of us that have areas of our lives that are withered are less than they should be. This is the very space in which God inhabits and can bring about remarkable change. So the Sabbath is not about religious observance. The Sabbath is about creating a space in which God can be found and encountered, where we can find rest for our souls.